Today is book review day, so let's have a look at some of your books and let's see if we can improve them a little bit. Hello Homebossers, my name is Nouri Yacobi from thehomeboss.com. Welcome to my channel, which is all about helping you to make money online. And if that sounds interesting to you, please consider subscribing so that you can get more videos like this. So if you haven't been on my channel before, I make videos about helping people who want to make money online from home and how to build it into a real business. And a lot of my videos are about Amazon KDP, which is mainly focused on low content books, which are things like planners, notebooks, journals, anything that is not actually written, but it can still create a really good income. And you may even want to reach out further and create full content books once you are more familiar with the low content. So today I thought we'd do another book review. In some of my videos I have been showing you some books that some very brave people have volunteered, and they've been writing to me and saying, can you review my book? And I'm very happy to do that, especially when I can do that over YouTube on a video so that everybody can share and everybody can take a look and see what other people are doing, but also how we can improve those books and make them better so that they have a better chance of selling. So thank you for all of you who have written in and given me their book links. If your book hasn't been reviewed yet, my apologies, I'm getting a lot of these requests. I'm working through them as best as I can, and if your book hasn't come up yet, maybe send me another email, because sometimes the emails get lost in the amount of emails that I receive. So hopefully I've got everybody covered and I have reviewed everybody, but if not, feel free to send me another email. So let's have a look at our first book. Let's see what we can do, whether it needs some improvement, and let's dive straight into the screen share. So let's see what we've got here. We've got a baking colouring book for kids, sweets colouring book with baking theme for bake-loving kids, pictures of desserts, cupcakes, cakes, donut, and so on. So looking at the title, first of all, baking colouring books for kids, I would use that as the subtitle, and I would use the title as something else, because as you know, I always say the title is the name of your book and you can call it anything you like, but it helps to have relevant keywords in the title, and the subtitle explains what the book is, and I think baking colouring book for kids explains it perfectly. So that would be the perfect subtitle, and maybe I would call the title something like Colouring and Baking Fun or something like that. I haven't had the time to think about it, but I would call that something different and then use baking colouring book for kids as the subtitle, because the subtitle here is sweets colouring book with baking theme for bake-loving kids. It's too long for starters. I mean, the length isn't necessarily the bad thing about it. It's just it doesn't read very well. You wouldn't say to someone, oh, what kind of book is your book? And then you would say, sweet colouring book with baking theme for bake-loving kids. You wouldn't describe your book like that. So it just doesn't read very well. It doesn't read like something that you would say. So it looks like you have just tried to put in as many keywords as possible, which is not a good idea to do it this way. You have to use your keywords in a subtle way, in a way that it still reads nicely, that it still sounds like a sentence that describes to other people what your book is about. So I would definitely change that and try and put the keywords in a different way. And let's have a look. Colouring Ink is your author name. I'm surprised they let that go through, because that's not really a name, and I imagine that you're only going to use this author name if you're producing coloring books, which is okay if you've got a coloring book brand. If you've got a website that's got a domain name, coloringink.com, then you can argue with Amazon if they say to you this is a confusing author name. Then you can always say, well, I've got a brand with that name, and then they might let you have it. But at the moment, I'm surprised they let you have this name, because you know, people are getting emails all the time saying the author name is confusing or the contributor's name is confusing. It doesn't, you know, Coloring Ink is not a name. An author name is supposed to be the name of a person who has created the book, or the name of a brand. I don't think you have Coloring Ink as a brand. I don't think you've got a website or a Facebook page or anything like that with that name. So I would be careful from now on with author names, because I know that Amazon are sending out lots of emails warning people that their author names are not right. And it's fine if your book has gone through the process and it's been accepted. But if you ever go back into your book and you want to change something and you make revisions, then there's a good chance that Amazon would say, okay, hang on a minute, but your author name is not right. So try and avoid that from the start. Looking at your cover, Baking Coloring Book for Kids, you've done the right thing in putting the title the same as the title that you've uploaded for the book. But do you know what I mean? It just says Baking Coloring Book for Kids. It's not exciting enough. That just tells me what it is. But it hasn't got a title that's catchy, or a title that really makes me want to look at this book. So like I said, it's better to have that in the subtitle and think of a more exciting name for the title for the book. The way the cover is designed, I think what you've done is you've created two backgrounds. I can see some donuts at the top and at the bottom, and then there's like a background between them with cupcakes. Personally, I would have just left the donuts or the cupcakes as a background. I wouldn't mix them together, because it kind of clashes a little bit and you can't see the donuts properly. So I would go for one or the other. And I like the circle in the middle for the text. That's great. But I think you need to center it a little bit. I'm having a lot of problems with things like that myself. The first books that I created, you can see they're all a little bit off center. So whatever software you're creating the cover in, try and find a way that you can find the exact center for your cover so that it looks a little bit more professional that way. So what else can we find at first glance? Let's have a look. The price. That's really cheap. I wouldn't bother making cheap books like that, because when people see cheap prices, they really think that the quality is cheap. So if you are proud of your book and you know it's a really good book, make it more expensive. I never go under $6.99 because it's just not worth my time otherwise. And also the amount of time that goes into creating a book, you really need to give it the value that it deserves. So once you have improved this book, I would also raise my price on that to give you a better profit. And let's have a look at your title. So it says, my baking coloring book for kids is full with scrumptious desserts that kids love and will entertain them for hours while they bring them to life by coloring. Right, well, the book isn't filled with scrumptious desserts. I wish. If we could buy a book and that has some desserts in it that we can eat, that would be brilliant. I think what you want to say is it's full of coloring images that kids love, or full of coloring images of desserts, because obviously the desserts are not in the book, but the images of the desserts are the coloring images. And will entertain them for hours while they bring them to life by coloring. Okay, let your kids' creativity run wild with this baking coloring book for kids. I don't know if English is your first language, but if it isn't, and I suspect it probably isn't, you really need to get this proofread by someone who knows the language very well, because there are some spelling mistakes here. Baking is in capitals, I guess, because your title is in capitals, but you don't need to have them in capitals in your description. And let your kids' creativity, it should be a kids apostrophe creativity, because it's a possessive. So you need to watch those little things, because they can be quite important when people look at your description. Your description is what advertises your books, and you want it to be as professional as possible. This book contain, again, doesn't need to be capitalized, and it should be this book contains with an S at the end. I'm sorry if I sound like a teacher. This is what I actually used to do for a living. I used to be an English language teacher for many, many years. And when I look at these things, I jump at them straight away. So sorry if I sound a little bit school madamish, but it's what I used to do for a job, and I still like to do it. So just watch your grammar and your spelling and try and improve that as much as you can. So it's good to have the things in your description that your book contains, and it's really good to have them as bullet points. So 8.5 by 11 gives them the size, mega size coloring books. Baking theme, that's good. 76 pages, 38 of them are for coloring. If you're writing this, then people will think, well, what are the other pages for? So I imagine that you probably have blank pages at the back. You should include that in your description. You should say that 38 coloring pages with blank back pages to avoid bleed through, something like that, so that people know why they only get 38 images when there are 76 pages in the book. So different types and shapes, different types of what, different shapes of what. So you have to say what types. I imagine you want to express that there are different types of desserts. So you could say that, different types of desserts. An amazing cover design. Don't say that in your description, because people will argue with you. Don't put things that are your opinion. Amazon don't like that, especially in titles. I mean, in the description you can do it, it's allowed, but I wouldn't recommend it, because it kind of gives an unprofessional feeling, because this is your opinion, and people don't want to know your opinion. People want to know what is in this book. What is this book about? Sometimes you can say things like charming interior or something like that, but an amazing cover design, it's better if you tell them what the cover is made of. Is it matte? Is it glossy? That kind of thing. Or glossy, colorful cover design, or matte, colorful cover design. Something like that would be better than an amazing cover design. And use your choice of coloring tools, pens, pencils, markers. No, don't suggest markers for a coloring book, because markers will bleed through. And the best thing for a coloring book on KDP would be pencils or even crayons, you know, because they don't bleed through to the other pages. And I would actually, if I create a coloring book, I would actually make sure that I mention that. I would mention the recommended tools or the recommended pencils to use, because a lot of people get bad reviews because of the thin quality of KDP paper, because KDP was never intended for coloring books. KDP was intended for novels, for fiction, for all those type of books that you read, not for books that you write in. So it's not suitable for every type of coloring, and it's very important that we let our customers know. So never suggest markers in a coloring book. This is why I think it's also very important to know your niches. If you are creating a coloring book, before you create a coloring book, buy a coloring book from KDP and buy one that has a really good, reviews, that has really good ratings, and then compare them to your coloring books, because a lot of people are making coloring books that are for little children, for toddlers, for kindergarten children, and it's okay to use very simple designs, but I feel that people are jumping on this coloring book bandwagon, and they're creating coloring books that are not really what people are looking for in a coloring book. If it's a coloring book for children, then great. But if you're creating a coloring book for adults, for example, I'm seeing too many books that are far too simple for adults. And this is why, you know, just buy a coloring book before you create one, so that you know what you are competing against and what you are creating. So this is one of the reasons why I don't make many coloring books myself, because when I make a coloring book, I want it to be really good and really stand out. And there's a lot of competition out there. So there are some amazing coloring books. Just look at Jade Summer, Joanna Basford. Those are fantastic coloring books for adults, and it's hard to compete with someone like that. So, but by all means try making some for children, because they are easier to produce. So that's your description. Keep your child entertained for hours without any grown-up help. I know why you're creating this book. You just want your children to be quiet and you don't want to hear them for a few hours. So let's have a look and see the inside of your book. So the cover, like we said, needs a little bit of centering, and I would definitely only choose one of the backgrounds rather than both of them together. But that's my opinion. Maybe, you know, some people have different opinions. So it's very hard to comment on somebody's cover design, because obviously people's taste have a lot to do with the choice. But just from a designer point of view, there's too much going on here. So keep it simple. Keeping it simple is always best. So let's have a look. This book belongs to. Very nice page to start with. I like it. And then we have I Love Baking with lots of utensils. I like that page. There's nothing wrong with that. And this is the back page, and very good idea to put some of the pages, some of the interiors on the back, so that people can see what they are buying. But I would have done this bigger. I would have centered it first of all, because this looks like it's just fallen onto the back page, and I would center this, make these images a little bit bigger, and I would say this is an example of what you can find in our book. Hope you have lots of fun coloring them in, something like that, just to talk to your customers, you know, talk to them, let them know what your book is about, give them a little idea. What I sometimes do as well is I put my book description on the back cover, so that people know when they look at the book what they're getting. So that's what I would do with this book. So yes, I think they're lovely images and very easy for a child to color in, and it makes a good children's coloring book. So I hope that my suggestions have helped you a little bit. And obviously I don't know what keywords you've been using, but I would say that don't forget, and I keep saying this a lot, don't forget to target the gift market as well. When you're using keywords, make sure that you're using your books as a gift as well. So, you know, gift for children, gift for grandchildren, gift, you know, for nieces, for nephews. Those are the kind of keywords that you want to put into the 7 keyword slots for your book. But all in all, nice design. Hope my recommendations help you a little bit, and I hope you can't change the title and the subtitle once a book has been published, but just bear it in mind when you're creating more coloring books, that the title should be something a little bit more exciting, and this could be a really good subtitle, Baking Coloring Books for Kids. And also think about the author name. Make it something that sounds more like a person's name, unless you have a brand. If you have a brand called Colouring Ink, then that's fine. So I hope this has helped you, and I hope that everybody watching has learned something from it. I think that sometimes when we do reviews like this, I hope that it's not just about criticizing, but it's also about learning from it and finding ways to improve your own books. I know that when I started, my books had so many mistakes in them, but this is how you learn. This is how you get better and you produce better books, and this is how you make more sales. So I hope it has helped you. I think there are some really good points about the book, and there were some that need improving. So I hope it's helped for any further books that you make, and I hope it's helped everybody else. So let me know if you want me to do more videos like this. I've still got some that I have to review. They'll be coming up in my next videos. And if you want your book reviewed, like I said, I'm very happy to do that. And you can send an email to info@thehomeboss.com. I get quite a lot of emails, so I'm sorry if I miss one of them. If you see that you are not getting a reply, just maybe resend the email, but please just be patient because I've got so many emails to answer. And in fact, this is a good opportunity to remind you to join our Facebook group, because any questions that you have, they are best put in the Facebook group, because everybody's really helpful and we can all answer questions and help each other, and that is the best and fastest way to get a reply. So I'll leave a link in the description below the video for my Facebook group. And as always, thank you again so much for watching. I really appreciate every one of you, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.